Florida, and the UAE. So I
Oh,
a wonderful
wow.
triad and born and raised in Silicon Valley. So that's still Stanford is
Still post San Francisco, West
still
Coast
a
is still
center of
in you.
gravity. Yeah.
And where in New York? In Manhattan, New York, or?
Midtown Manhattan,
Oh, nice.
what used to be called Hell's Kitchen
Hell's
on the
Kitchen.
west side.
Yeah.
It's now all of a
Yeah.
sudden chic.
Right.
If
Yes,
I had known,
the
I
name
guess
is
I
a fit.
never would have ended up there, but it's really
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah, we lived for a long time in Greenwich, Connecticut. We still
Okay.
have our place there.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
we
Where are you
kind of
now?
in Miami, in Florida, in
Of
Miami.
course.
Where in Florida is your
In
other base?
Orlando, and we're
Hmm.
kind of shopping for the places that we want to ultimately land. But we're
Yep.
at Lake Nona right now because there's a tech hub here in Lake
Oh,
Nona, not
oh, okay.
in Orlando, which feels very much like Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And but it'll probably end up being West Palm Beach. We'll see.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're kind of thinking about that too. Like, where would we want our base? I think now we're moving to Seattle. I'm still in Miami. I'll move there in the summer when my kids are out of school.
Mm.
And so Seattle will probably be one. We want to keep our place in Connecticut, and then we want one more place. Maybe, probably, we have a lot of friends in Miami, so that'd probably be our
Awesome.
trifecta. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
To see you there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we'll just roll into it.
Great.
All right. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us. I really enjoyed reading your book, and I usually try to focus in on a few parts, but I couldn't. Each chapter is critical, the way you stack them up. So I really appreciate you doing the work and for spending some time with us.
Wonderful. I'm so delighted to be
Yeah,
here and love the work that you're doing and all the people that you're touching with your work.
awesome. Thank you. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Orlando,
Oh,
and
Orlando. Okay.
not the sexiest spot, but boy, is it sizzling with new ideas and new tech and new energy. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, many people think of it as a vacation area or Disney creative, but you were saying that there's a lot of there's a tech hub there as well.
There is everything from special ops using Meta to kind of create virtual reality for education and operations. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of tech on health tech front as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels very
Oh,
much like where I was born and raised, which is Silicon Valley.
Silicon
So lots
Valley.
of energy
Great.
around entrepreneurship.
Great. Awesome. So I'm going to start with the two questions that I ask all our guests. And the first one's just for us to get to know you a little bit personally. Could you complete the sentence for me? If you really know me, you know that.
You know that I love hanging out in zero G
Huh.
with people who run companies. And there's nothing to be more of a metaphor for disruption than to lose your center of gravity.
Ah,
And so it ends up being one of the final exercises that we always do in a lot of my CEO readiness program.
really? Wow.
So there's nothing like seeing Evan Sharp, the co-founder of Pinterest, walking along the ceiling. At least I
Cool.
thought it was the
Yeah.
ceiling because I was
Yeah.
in the opposite direction.
It doesn't really matter when you're zero
And
G.
I
Yeah.
had, Enrique Lores, who was on the short list to become CEO at HP, and
Hmm.
his CEO, his boss there. And it does kind of test your mettle. I mean, it's the vomit comment on one level. On another, how are you going to
Is
get
that is
through
that is
it?
that another reason to be in Orlando, the Space Coast?
Well, it ends up being a thrill. It's available all over the world now
Okay.
to be able to do this, but that is exactly where I did it because I like going up with the astronauts. And there's nothing
Hmm.
like changing your frame of reference to maybe get better in touch with what your strategy is and
Yep.
what you're planning to do as a CEO.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. We could go further down there, but we have much more to cover than we have time for. Second question, what's your definition of strategy?
Well, in my context, I'm a CEO coach. So, as a candidate for the C-suite, I'd say the definition of strategy is that set of courageous choices that you're going to make about where to play, how to win, and who has to believe in you in order to win the job of CEO. And
I like
so,
that. I've never heard that. Who has to believe in you? But it makes
exactly,
a lot of
this
sense.
is you end up having to earn readiness twice in terms of your candidacy is one of the things that I've discovered. And this is such a shock because I'm only working with the most elite athletes, people at the
Hmm.
top of the game. That's why you got picked. You've been delivering for decades. The fact that you might have to win hearts and minds in a new way outside your swim lane is one of the epiphanies that is a thrill to me to map a strategy for individuals who are seeking that higher level of responsibility.
Got it. Yeah, I love it. And I mean, I can see that being kind of the kernel or kind of the main message for me of your book.
Yes.
Um, so let's dive into that a little bit. You know, there is this idea you're a top performer, you're delivering results. You know, you have earned the right. You're the best player on the team, so to speak. But you know, you
Right.
say that that only gets you halfway there.
Yeah.
Why doesn't like your past success necessarily qualify you to
Well,
be CEO?
well, first and foremost, it's really true if you think about any senior position. We could be saying that you're trying to become vice president or a director of a program, a managing director, or an SVP. It's particularly acutely true in the case of CEOs. And what I'm talking about there is that you are on this short list because you are elite.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve it. You're the
Mm-hmm.
one. I mean, they're
Yep.
telling you that at the board meetings, at the dinners, they pulled you aside. You're
Yeah.
that guy. You're the next one. We love what you're doing. Keep on delivering this way. And there's a good reason to have them pledge their allegiance to you and everyone else. And you don't realize that they're maybe more
Uh-huh.
than one suitor, right? Because they want you stable. They want you delivering. They actually do love you. It's just we love maybe more than one person. We don't know who's going to be the final candidate. And as a fiduciary, the board of directors has one job: hire and fire the CEO. That is
Mm.
ultimately their penultimate responsibility in governance of an organization. And so, as a fiduciary, they have to look at some elite candidates internally, which may just surprise or shock the hell out of you. Who else here would be c'est moi? I mean, who else could it be but me?
Right,
You
right.
deserve it the most. And yet, they have to do that. They have to think about what their optionality is. Everybody can be hit by a bus, or bad things do happen. And then externally, they're always looking at candidates as well. So they've activated the assessment firms and the recruiting firms. And so
Mm.
you could be, even someone like Enrique Lore, as I talk about in the book, when I talk to board members, they said, he's amazing. He's spectacular. He'd be a great CEO. I'd put him in third place right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this is the nuance that may feel like it's a bigger order of magnitude as a leap, because hell, I thought I've arrived. I'm right
Mm-hmm.
there on the 3 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
How could that be such a long distance? And we've seen those Super Bowls where that seems like
Yeah, that's right.
it'll be
Yep.
100 yards.
That's right. That's right. I love that analogy. And you know, you're talking about the boards here, but I'd love for you to just lay out these 7 deciders or decision makers or gatekeepers for us, and we're going to then go into a few of them.
Okay.
But it really struck me, you know, your point, and it really opened my eyes. I was, you know, yeah, you're right. We need not just the board and not just the investors, but there are a whole number. So maybe if you don't mind briefly ticking through the 7.
Sure. Well, it's so essential to know this because I was just on with a woman who's now been tapped. She's a president of a division. She has incredible skills on the ops side. She's been tapped to be a CEO candidate. She has exactly the chops I'm looking for because it's a combination of this confidence that she's already in her role. Like many people who run an operation, or they're maybe even a CFO, which are the 2 most popular areas to pick from. You feel like you've touched everybody. You feel like you know all the stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
And she just put it beautifully. She said, all of a sudden, there's people I didn't know who were relevant to the decision-making process, and who I'm so grateful you've reached out to me. Who are you? I didn't know you played this role. And so, yes, it's board members, but you may have, because of your swim lane, because of your expertise, if you're CFO, you might be working mostly with the audit committee, for example, or if you're in
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, you might be working with other specialists in the board. So to be able to understand there's more than one stakeholder, you probably have 13 bosses to look forward to working for. We think the CEO is the boss. You have this mandate, but actually you have as many bosses as there are board members, because they're all going to weigh in on the vote to select you and, these days keep you. There
Yep.
are the shareholders and the activists. There are also this notion of the peers don't pick you, but they can get you killed. So if
Mm-hmm.
you think about you're moving from peer to chief. Wait, have I been competing? I want to check my work and look in the mirror right now. I've been advocating for my division of the company. That's the right thing to do. That's why you pay me the big bucks. That's why I'm here. But maybe I haven't treated you as the partner I
Mm-hmm.
need to. And they don't want the entire rest of the C-suite clearing out when you get announced as the new boss.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
chief,
Yep.
there is the larger population of employees. The engagement survey matters now. There's so many tools
Mm-hmm.
where they're actually weighing in. You get that monthly pulse is one of the tools that we were just working with today, where they start to now be able to allocate that by department, by division. So they're going to know whether Mark is actually starting to light hearts and minds among the employees who have to serve the customers in a service business.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about those customers. Are they going to feel confident that you know something about their business and their drama and the disruption that they're facing in the world? And how have you really thought about the relationship you have with the CEO, the existing incumbent
Yeah.
CEO?
Complicated.
This is something that is actually a lot more complicated than people realize. Even people who plan for it well. Deanna Mulligan at Guardian Life, one of the great financial services leaders ever, planned for 10 years when she got the job as CEO to think about succession, accelerating that right into the last 24 months, and then finally picked someone in partnership with the board. And it was textbook, just a spectacular transition. And on the day that she handed off her keys to the boardroom, she said it felt like I was cutting my arm off. My identity. I'd worked
Mm-hmm.
my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is who I am.
It's the kind of person you want. This is who I am. It's not just what I do. It is my identity. And so you wonder why that makes it complicated to talk about succession in a way that has me being the one who's exiting,
Yeah. Yeah.
and choosing somebody. And now if we start talking about someone being better than me
Mm-hmm. Right.
for the next chapter,
Right.
that
My
takes a whole
legacy
different, and my legacy, all the rest of that. So I talk about each of these discreetly as seven stakeholders. The one I haven't mentioned yet is one that often gets overlooked because you assume that you're in the game. That why would you ever turn down the opportunity to become CEO? Well, a lot of people do. Most people won't become CEO, and there's plenty of other amazing jobs,
Yeah.
like being a chief scientist or a chief technology officer, or a chief financial officer, where you have a legacy and impact. And this is not a prize. This is a very, very high risk, sometimes very unrewarding job with a shorter tenure than it's ever been in history.
And getting shorter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to tick these down, and I'm not sure if I'm getting I know I'm missing someone. We got the board.
Yes.
You've got your peers. You've got
Yes.
employees. You've got
Yes.
the current CEO. You have
Yes.
investors. You
Right.
have customers.
Correct.
And I'm
And you've
missing
got
one.
you.
Oh, you, right.
I'm talking about there.
Yeah.
We in fact the book starts out with us really double clicking on, and I use the example of Art Levinson, who's chairman of Apple, credible rock star of a builder of Genentech, not the founding CEO, but the next one, 14 years, created incredible compounded annual returns, actually helped address types of cancer and all sorts of other therapies that were transformational. It was the invention of biotech in the early days. And he didn't want the job. He had to be approached twice by the board. He said, look, I'm chief scientist. I came here to cure cancer. Bob Swanson is co-founder of the company. He's dying of cancer. Actually, he died before we could deliver a therapy. That's a mission worth having and a mission worth honoring. And it wasn't until his wife kind of circled back, in addition to the board member, saying, hey, look, if you really believe that, then who else but you to be a steward of making it possible that dream is realized? That I know you don't want to do budget meetings at boards, but maybe that's what it takes to save lives. And that was
Wow.
and then when Steve Jobs approached him saying, I like how you roll, Art, will you become a board member at Apple? He said no again. For all the same reasons. He says, I love Apple products. I love what you're doing, man. You're amazing. I'm not a PC guy. I'm not an Apple guy. I'm trying to work on all this life-saving stuff over here.
Yeah.
And that's when Steve said, that's why you're the perfect guy. You're not doing this for prestige. You're not doing it because it's Apple's cool. You're doing it because you know all the stuff that happens in trying to run a business. Could you help us here? And now he's still chairman of the board at Apple. So
Gotcha.
This to me is my favorite profile. Corey Berry at Best Buy sent a 7-page letter, 6 pages saying why she shouldn't be CEO. Starting with that existential crisis, she's one rock star CFO. That's what she loves. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of it is interesting, but this is what lights my sky. And so once again, for her, it ended up working out. She was a great choice. But to have that humility at the beginning to say, is this really for you?
Yeah.
I admire greatly. And I think that's what makes great CEOs.
Yeah, because I think that, the CEO, the name, it just feels prestigious. It feels
Yes,
powerful.
right,
It's like if you're climbing the pyramid, that's the goal. And I guess people
right.
maybe have misunderstandings about what it actually involves and how much it fits with what you like to do or you're good at.
And what you like to do, what you're good at, and what you're going to have energy for when the shit hits the fan.
Right.
Because it will often, and at a level uh, of an order of magnitude like never before.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks they can do your job better than you.
Right.
Whether it's I talk about this now with the owners and the activists. If you want to drill down in one category, they're taking out a huge number of CEOs very quickly.
Yeah.
They are shortening the tenure. They are. It used to be maybe just 5 years ago, there was a 1 in 20 chance you'd lose your job once you got a call from the activists. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
a 1 in 5 chance
Yeah.
you'll lose your job as CEO. And if you're at a big brand like Unilever, where they just shocked the world with announcing the departure in less than 2 years of the CEO, another short and
Mm-hmm.
quick tenure, the chances of you being knocked out are 40%. Um,
Wow.
if you're at a big brand, because that's where you got a target on your chest.
Yeah.
And that's where also board members, which is another cohort we talk about as
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders, there might have been a time when you could say that they were the golf buddies of the CEO. Now they're experts. Now they're people who are contributing in very rich ways. And sometimes the activists are even holding them accountable for whether the marketing plan, if you're the marketing expert, so they're
Mm-hmm.
coming after board members. So we don't have as much patience for the CEO's performance anymore because we're also in the crosshair.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's start with with board members, and I thought was most interesting. One of the most interesting things in that chapter is just that the psychology of board members, right? Like you
Yeah.
think that they want performance, but you talk about that they're really interested in safety, in trust, in someone who's going to bring them bad news. Just talk to us a little bit about what is the psychology of the board members. What are board members looking for?
Well, you think about it, this notion of having as many bosses as there are board members. So let's say there's
Mm-hmm.
12 of them, and each of them has a point of view and a lens through which they're looking at the world. This is a good thing. They've hopefully been recruited because of subject matter expertise or industry expertise, perhaps a point of view around human resources because they've been a former CPO. Maybe a point of view around audit and finance and the CFO's role because they are often former audit partners who become board members.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're more professorial because they have a subject matter expertise in a field that might lend to a technology or to a scientific therapy or a molecule that a pharma company is developing. So you've got a pretty diverse or increasingly diverse group of people who are subject matter experts and hopefully former CEOs. But many of them have a high level of credibility in their field. And so if you think about taking in any one single prompt and say what's most important, if you've got 12 brains, you're going to have 12
12
either
opinions.
significantly or somewhat nuanced variations on the answer to the question as you go around the table.
Mm-hmm.
And they all will have also their own scar tissue, which I talk about in the book, which is kind of, in a sense, I had one general counsel tell me, very, very senior executive, who's just hilarious. She says they're kind of like all rescue dogs. All of us are rescue dogs because we all have scar tissue. We've all come back from the brink. We're performing at the top of our game. We might have arrived in this country with $12. We all have our story of transformation, and we bring all those wounds to our
Mm-hmm.
wisdom
Yeah.
that also will inform and bias our point of view. It's like, watch out for that. You don't ever want to buy an XYZ company because when we did that at ABC Company,
It hurt.
it
Yeah.
was a shit show.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out for us. Watch out. It's like, well, when was that? Well, 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in the same field? Not exactly. But it's still my scar tissue and it's still a lens, not necessarily wrong. But everyone has their flavor of the perceptions of the impact of the strategy of the company. And that's that's a good thing. That's kind of, in a sense, it's not a democracy on the board, but every voice was actually recruited to add value,
Yep.
and
Yep.
add impact, and that's the blessing and the curse of it.
Right. And they're chosen for their intuition and their experience and
Right.
their
And
so
they're
let
different.
me see if we can get some free coaching from you for
Of
an
course.
aspirational CEO. And we're focusing here on the board because you coach CEOs, you coach emerging or future CEOs as well.
Yes.
Many future CEOs, they get opportunities to be in front of the board. They're presenting.
Yes.
And so before you are even told that maybe you're in the running, what is something that someone who does get a chance to interact with the board, what should they be doing? One thing I'm hearing is getting to know the board and
Yes.
listening to what their experiences are. But what else should a prospective CEO be doing when they get opportunities to be interacting with the board?
Well, when I talk to leaders about their first 100 days and I ask them what they wish they knew, it was the point that you're making, which is that everyone around the table has a different point of view. And I wasn't listening to the whole meeting. I was listening to the part of the meeting that was relevant to my swim lane. And
Right.
and that's a good thing. Once again, this is not the fact that we had bad practices, the fact that you were so ambitious and focused, so relentless in your precision on delivering in your swim lane is the reason you have the seat at the table, the reason you got invited to present, and now the reason you're part of the elite short list.
Yes.
However, the quickest way to lose their interest is to continue just being a subject matter expert. You need to now shift your aperture and your opening to say, I want to hear what's happening at the table in the board meeting. I want to know who my customers are. That might be a
Right.
better frame of reference to say every one of those people has greater or lesser influence or impact on my bottom line. But in terms of my brand, I need to know who at the table is weighing in on the decision. These are your judges, they will decide.
Yes. Yes.
And that also kind of goes for the entire enterprise. So that would affect the peer to chief comment I made earlier. I need to start to think about the entire executive committee meetings that I'm attending with my boss, the CEO, because she's addressing legal, finance, marketing, strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and all the different operating responsibilities at the table. This is really important for a strategy officer, which is one of the focuses of your program, because you think that the added value that you bring, you're right about the fact that it's the breadth of understanding the entire context of the company. And yet I'll hear over and over when people get the job, they go, I still had blinders on.
Mm.
So if you now shift what your accountability is to the board of directors, to the shareholders, and to all these stakeholders, how would you be showing up for the board meeting differently? How would you
Mm.
be having conversations that really, I think as a strategy officer, this is probably might be the golden era for you to have as an opportunity as a candidate for CEO if you have the ambition.
Mm.
Because it's all now about evolving strategies that get disrupted by the next
Yes.
activist.
Yes. Yes. And you get an opportunity to understand the interconnections between the system, about, marketing and operations and customer and finance and understand the
A
kind
whole
of broader
systemic
system, whole
view.
system. Yes.
Exactly. That
Yes.
that whole ecosystem. And now think about shifting your chair and realizing that I guess the only watch out for everybody is I think they often assume the CEO has a mandate.
Mm-hmm.
In
And they
other words,
don't?
that he or she has the absolute penultimate authority to make any decision. If you
Gotcha.
see these people getting knocked out in the first 2 years, they've somehow overlooked stakeholders that got them knocked out.
Yes.
If they had a mandate, they'd still have the job.
Yes.
This also happened to if you think about why Brian is such a great choice at Starbucks,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because he's coming in where he thought about all the shareholders at Chipotle. He thought about how he had to transform the breadth and the systems there, and he didn't just tell people what the hell to do.
Mm-hmm.
He
Got it. Got
listened.
it.
He recruited them. He realized I can't do CEOs don't do anything. What they do is hopefully map and choose the strategy along with the strategy officer. Hopefully they've got a grip on selling it to the company rather than coming in. The predecessor, I think that's one of the challenges that happened at Starbucks was that being recruited by Howard Schultz, you'd think you'd have a mandate, and you kind of do, but you can't just come in like a consultant and tell everybody at the table what to do. You have to win hearts and minds all around the table.
Yes.
They have to be recruited to this task. You have to build a case, maybe even have to work harder because your
Yes.
cred may be questioned. Well, you're just doing this because you've got the boss's ear. Yes, that should help all of us here, but it's not a
Yep.
zero-sum game. It's not a Game of Thrones. So that
Yeah.
is, yeah, I think probably the principal issue is
We hear that, yeah, we hear that a lot, especially the CEOs that we've had on the podcast. You kind of see that they see that it's not the technically right answer on the strategy isn't the right answer unless it is one that others agree on. And so maybe it's better to have the suboptimal answer, but it's the one that gets all the stakeholders that gives you the right to execute on it because you have support of all the stakeholders.
It's a great point. It could be a progressive dinner too, because it may be sequential.
Yes.
You build where the traction is.
Yes.
And,
Right.
and we start to then lean into some of our strengths. Let's execute in this area. We really understand e-commerce. Let's get that online. Let's resource that. Let's make that happen quick. Let's not wait until everything's ready. Let's make sure that the areas where we can execute the best first, and we can win hearts and minds. I think it takes us back to the point I made earlier about it's your job to make sure that people believe, and that you can't take it for granted because of your authority. And often we do.
Yeah. So I want to turn to peers. Hold on, I'm going to pause for one quick second here that we won't record this, but it's great that you mentioned Brian Starbucks, but it's important that nobody like knows that my wife is working with him, and that doesn't like come out as something.
You want me to replace that language?
No, that's okay. That was just like one example of others. So that's good. But just don't say like, as you know, or don't say anything like that. Yeah.
Because
my wife.
Probably the two most famous examples right now of boomerang CEOs would be Starbucks, with Brian Niccol being the great guy. So there's lots of reasons to bring him up.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Great. It's still, we're not recording right now, but it was really interesting when my wife joined. She's the general counsel, and one concern that he had was that he had an experience with someone who was very kind of had a big public persona, and he felt like they weren't putting the company first. And so my wife, she's this really high-powered Latina who's broken through these ceilings. She gets all these awards and stuff like that for that. And so that was like a concern. So that's where it's interesting. That's where it's sort of coming from, is I need to stay
Very
away.
cool.
All right. All right. So we'll start recording again now. So let's talk to the peers. I thought this is really interesting, this dynamic, because, your peers can say, I love working with Mark and I see him as a colleague and is a great partner. That doesn't necessarily mean that they then, and maybe it means because of that, maybe it's more difficult for them to then see you as the boss. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think you should expect that all of your peers will have a hard time seeing you as the boss as the first thing that comes to mind, because it's a little bit like growing up with somebody. We're always going to think about the Mark we knew in high school.
Right.
And it's like, what? Best-selling author, coach, not the guy in college.
Right.
So I think there's a little of that, especially if there is a wonderful esprit de corps. We're brothers and sisters in a sense. This band of executives, hopefully working together to perform at the highest level. There's always been an undercurrent at some level, greater or lesser, of competition, because we're all looking to build our division and our swim lane the best it could possibly be. And, if I am general counsel, I'd better be general counsel first. If I'm CFO, it's CFO first. And if I'm division president of the largest revenue division, well, it's important for you to know that I'm running the biggest revenue division. And so I should have a level of gravitas that matters most. And that is one reason why I'm on the short list to be CEO. Yeah. And so there are some natural influences. We're not talking about good and bad people. We're not talking about even good or bad behavior yet. It's just that there is one of the points I make throughout the book is the circumstances and the container with which you've been recruited to be the elite status athlete that you are lend themselves to tension with you making, that's why there's so much work to do to think about
Mhm.
yourself in the new role, because you've put so much effort into making your division the most successful and haven't had to spend as much time thinking about the other divisions of the company.
Yes.
And as you make that migration, as you consider that, as you start to open your mind to, well, I want to be a CEO here someday, how might I be behaving or handling this conversation in public differently?
Uh-huh.
And often we're very miserly. There's an interesting kind of human dynamic at whatever age we are to be a bit miserly about being generous to others around the table.
Hmm.
Almost like it's zero sum. Mark's going to get too big a head if I, call him out for being such a great partner on this, or he might get a little more resources, somehow shift to favoritism. It's like, well, wait a minute, who am I right now? We're part of this band of sisters and brothers, and we're all trying to make this company successful. And what if you started to signal in public in front of the boss that that's exactly how you saw it?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's kind of another angle on the point you made earlier about, is the best interest of the company or the big personality first?
Yeah.
This would be a shift that could be often very noticed by people who would otherwise might be seen as silverbacks at the table when they start to
What,
include others.
so what would be like I don't know, the internal dialogue in a peer that is helpful for you to become a CEO? So I can see, okay, Mark, he has the best interest of the company at heart. He understands that it's not just his division, but my division as well. Like what kind of, I'm trying to like peek in the head of the peers of the person who is now ready to become CEO. What are they saying about this other person that makes it okay for them to now accept having this person as a boss?
Let me give you an example of something that worked at a tech company where the person who's running the biggest division was under consideration, and they weren't, the board and the CEO wasn't quite sure if that guy's enthusiasm and ambitions for that division were going to be inclusive of helping all the others. So it was a little difficult for them to start to see, while he performed so well in this area, whether he could play with others, because he had a temper and sometimes he wouldn't always be listening, and could have sharp elbows if he felt that his interest might be, or his division's interest might be in jeopardy, or having to compete with another division of the company. In his particular case, it made sense for him to do ride-alongs with the other division leaders and saying, take me into your division. I want to think about how I can optimize mine based on the fact that you guys are experts at yours, and starting to spend time actually asking questions and listening, and not serving as a coach or a consultant, but serving as a partner. And it was so disarming. It just shocked the heck out of the peers. It's like, what happened to this guy? I heard he got a coach, but damn, it's going to be actually taking me to lunch and asking me about my division. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's the ask?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the ask is, I don't know enough about the rest of the company, and I really think that we can leverage that. And the other thing is, in the short term, without even the CEO thing being on the table, they actually found ways, believe it or not, after having a conversation, they could be working together more. They could not maybe be paying. One operating executive I was talking this morning, she said that she was president, she was going on the short list for the CEO. She said, we find that we've been paying the fees to like 5 different research organizations we could be paying to one, just because it was so deeply embedded. We weren't even getting synergies. But then we started talking about our favorite projects, and all of a sudden it vetted like, we're paying XYZ company 5 times. And so they both could be heroes. And then that would be the kind of thing that you could bring back to the table at the exec committee. You asked us, boss, that we needed to we need to grow 10%, but you're not giving us any more budget. How are we going to do that? Well, we've been sitting together, and I just met with Mark, and we both realized we were double paying, and maybe we shouldn't be admitting that, but I bet everybody else at the table better look at this part as well. And so it ends up being an opportunity to start to show off that I play well with others, in the interest of the company, in enlightened self-interest, actually.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I got it. And I can see it also being cultural, depending on the kind of the culture of some companies are very
Totally.
kind of dog eat dog, cutthroat, and the the whoever ends up as the alpha gets to be the boss, but others, cultures are different.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit. We did talk about the CEO, but I just want to double click a little bit of the CEO. We talked a little bit about the CEO. They have this interest in their legacy. They have the interest in the overall kind of the future of the company, but talks a little bit more about the psychology and motivations of that CEO. What relationship do you want to have with the CEO so that they see you as that trusted, low risk successor, but also their legacy also includes, I guess, finding the right person to lead for the next era.
Yes. Well, I'd say that there's many ways to approach that. One of the important ones would be to kind of consider what's next for them. So they've come to the maybe top of their career. Maybe they'll become chair, but that's still not being the chief executive officer. So one of the things that you can do is kind of supportive partner and subordinate is to start thinking of the many ways they could also have impact on their legacy, both evangelizing the legacy that they built as they defined it, find out what that is, see if they could start to explore it, because you can help become closer and become one of their confidants by finding out like what's next for you, boss, and finding politically correct ways to bring that up in contexts that matter, and realize it's important for you to know that so that you can support that and be someone that they feel safe having those conversations with, and someone who they might start feeling safe handing over the keys to the kingdom to someone who understands how they're wired. I can't tell you the number of holiday seasons. December is about the time. I'm kind of expecting it at any moment now. As a CEO coach, I'm going to get a call from one of my candidates who's now been named to take the job in the new year, because that's happening a lot right now. And the boss, who's the current CEO, is saying, Mark, you're not ready.
Oof.
We looked at this. You've been making lots of great progress. I think we should run the assessments again and talk to the board about it. Fortunately, when that happened last holiday season, the board said, no, it's you who's not ready, boss. And we get it. That's understandable. That's okay. Let's all love you through this. Help you realize that you're not out the door. You're going to be chairman of the board. Still going to be running many things at the company, and you've picked a great successor, and we think he's awesome. And that's the one we're going to pick. Having said that, it just shows how dramatic that is. And
Yeah, I can see there's the emotional part, and then there's also the influence of the people that the CEO needs to also work with. One of those being investors. Let's go to investors a little bit, or owners. Talk to us about owners and how we should think about what their motivations are and what they're looking for that might be different than what the CEO or the board are looking for.
And for the candidate to see if you're really in alignment. The way I approach it as a CEO candidate is to realize that you're going to be working for the owners. And the one unique thing about owners is they own it. And so we both somehow not treat them like they own the place. And because we think that they're kind of marginalized sometimes, they're along for the ride. And yes, I'm driving, but I need to understand where all the fuel comes from. I can't actually get anywhere if I don't have that capital. Helping to provide the energy for the company, and to see them as stakeholders in more in-depth ways. So, for example, I guess the most notable examples would be coming from Silicon Valley and many entrepreneurial examples, that you're going from venture capital, which has a whole set of KPIs they're looking for that lead them up to an exit, which is often not an IPO. It's often going now to private equity or to other private resources, or mezzanine kind of financing levels. And one company that's I'm been involved with for 5 years is going public in 2 weeks, and they've had 6 rounds from venture to private equity, and they're all big brand names, known all the way up, and now they're going to have their final public exit. In each of those cases, it really shifted the kind of leader who needed to be running the place at the time. Just to maybe oversimplify, the venture guy had to show doubling and tripling of the customers, showing these incredible volumetric increases, saying, does this product have enough traction to earn its way to start investing in a framework and a foundation and a platform, so then you can take it to the next level. And that group of investors has a different set of KPIs, not unrelated, but they're not going to be looking to necessarily 10x the business every year.
Right.
And then the public investors are looking for what would hope to be something that'd be part of an index fund and other vehicles that would have a longer trajectory.
Yes,
Now,
more stability.
there's always urgency, and there's
Yeah.
always the quarterly drive that drives everybody nuts and also keeps everybody accountable at the same time.
So what can a candidate who may be some years away from even being considered, what do you coach them to do to get, I don't know if it's investor exposure or investor understanding, or do they get involved in investor presentations, or what do you do to build your credibility and understanding among owners?
I think at every level, let's say you're a strategy officer and working your way up to be CSO and then hopefully CEO someday, make sure that you're at every analyst day. Make sure that you're on every quarterly earnings call. Make sure that you're reading every analyst report.
Very helpful.
Weighing in and using that as a song sheet. I mean, I was joking earlier, but not even half joking when I talk about how the analysts are going to tell you what to do. The activists are going to have a point of view. Other types of shareholders will have a point of view from their lens. But the analysts are often, these really super smart, Ivy trained conceptualizers with maybe not a lot of actual operating experience, maybe no operating experience. They're very happy to tell you how to run the business. It gives you, though, a point of view on what strategy might be considered and how they're looking at what's happening in the industry, so that you can engage in that dialogue and maybe add value to the dialogue internally. So that, I mean, my advice always is, always be writing your own activist or analyst letter. And what would that say?
That.
And so that's actually something you could do at every level. And in some cases, it'll actually be what's used to help vet the short list of candidates for the CEO. We'd like to hear your pitch. They say, give us your strategy, but I'd rather give it more urgency. It's more red team than that.
Got it.
What must we be relentlessly focused on to achieve the next level of growth?
I love it. I love it. I have so many more questions. We are reaching towards the top of our time with you. I want to bring customers into the perspective. The customers aren't in the boardroom, but they do play have an influence. What is the nature of that influence? How and why do customers matter?
It's the oracle through which nothing else happens unless we have customers that are repeat customers and want to be a part and partner with you. I think the biggest shift for chief executives and chief strategy officers, in fact, the whole C-suite, is to start to think of customers as partners. Be selective in those relationships, depending on the nature of your business. If you're a big retail business, then you need to think about who's actually buying your products and services. If you're an enterprise or B2B company. So making sure that whatever role you're in, it may be that already it's natural for you to have a lot of customer influence and impact. And if it's not, it's your business to do the ride-alongs. Out there.
Yeah. Ride-along. I love it. Yeah. All right, I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to ask you, there's one question I want to ask you, but I don't know if you have a thought about this. So if it's not a question you want to go to, then we can skip it. But okay. No, I love it. It feels almost like a complicated lock where you have 7 dials and they all have to line up at the right time, and you have some influence and some of it's timing. But what I walked away from listening and reading the book is that I love that you don't have the same answer for each of the 7.
Right.
It depends. It's situational. And so what it got me thinking is that I've heard of some CEOs that are just jerks, and their peers don't want to work with them. But the investors love them, and the board cares about the investors. And so there might be kind of situations. So I'm wondering, do these different influences have more or less power depending on the situation? And how do you get the situational awareness to know what is the right path given your situation? If that makes sense.
I think it's a great question, and that that the notion of the visual that you're giving me of the locks that all the tumblers have to align so it's click,
Yes.
click,
Yes.
click, and the adventure begins.
Yeah.
And I think that timing does matter. It does when you're thinking about those adventure stories. And it means that what you need to be as an effective or a lead candidate is to be optimizing all the time, to be thinking about what are we doing as a part of your individual strategic plan. How am I executing against that plan in all 7 dimensions of this? Because that will be great for your career, whether you choose to, let's say, remain or to aspire to be CSO, let's say, or CEO. To have a plan, the plans never work out the way you plan them, but planning always works. In other words, it constantly keeps you disciplined towards making progress and getting better in all 7 areas. I often describe it as conversational fluency, as if you've got these fundamental different languages or cultures, because the culture of the CFO's office is not the same as marketing, for sure. And they have a different language, they have a different set of KPIs, they have a different way of speaking. So to be developing fluency in all those areas, if you do want to run the whole enterprise, you ought to speak a little bit of all the dialects that your country is
Sure.
composed of. And so
Right.
I'd say that would be the best way to be flexible when you talk about the changing circumstances that you're facing. Because you know what? If you do that, you may not be boss here, but you'll be boss somewhere.
That's great because I was kind of thinking that you could do everything right and you could be the right
Yeah.
person and then something changes in the external environment and the CEO that you need is
Yeah.
not you anymore.
Right.
But what you're saying is there's still hope, right? There's still there's a place for you.
There's more than hope, because what this does is actually improve your quality of life and your quality of contribution and your quality of impact and your portfolio and your resume. All those things get better because you've made all those investments. Think about it as an
Hmm.
investment, and they're an appreciating value. So it's not like I get one shot. If you do this, you get many shots. That's the difference.
Hmm.
If you don't do this, you may or may not get the one shot.
Got it.
This
I
is
got
this
it.
is this is not like Hollywood or the lottery, that
Yeah.
you just get the big part. This is a matter of you being so qualified that you have more than one suitor, and that you will get a big part in
Love
a
it.
place that matters to you, and you'll
Love it.
be better prepared to be prepared for it.
Love it. I love it. Thank you. Well, this has been amazing. We do have more questions, and readers can get answers to those questions certainly by buying your book.
Yep.
How else can people connect with you and learn from you?
I reached the epiphany that there needs to be a place for alumni who are CEOs, people who've been CEOs and are currently CEOs, to gather. And it's called the chiefexecutivealliance.com. So just go
Got
there.
it.
That's where I publish. That's where I do podcasts. That's where I interview people who are aspiring and current CEOs. And it's also where you can learn more about the book CEO Ready, which is just fresh out from Harvard Business Review.
Yeah, awesome. It's an outstanding book. And whether you want to be a CEO or not, I think it gives you a nice, clear framework to expand your appreciation of all the different areas that we need to be thinking about to be
Thank
a
you.
great leader. Thank you, Mark, for writing it, for distilling years and years of experience and great stories as well into the book, and for sharing that with us. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. And keep on delivering such great value as you are to the world. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.